At one point or another, we will all have experienced a level of dissociation. That feeling of checking out or being psychologically disconnected is more common than we maybe realize. And on today's video from GetPsyched, we're going to take a look at what dissociation is, what causes it, and how to overcome it. What's up guys, welcome to another week's episode of GetPsyched, and like I said, this week we're taking a look at dissociation. We're going to take a look at what dissociation is, how dissociation comes about, and how to actually overcome dissociation. Now make sure to like today's video. You can also comment on the video and let us know your thoughts about dissociation, maybe some points that you've come up with that's helped you overcome dissociation as well. And if you've been enjoying GetPsyched as a whole, then you can subscribe to us. You can also hit the little bell next to the subscribe button and you'll get weekly reminders every time we upload. On GetPsyched, we make a point to bring the best psychological and mental health information, so make sure to subscribe and you can check out more of our content. Anyway, back to today's video, and let's ask the first question, the big question really, which is what exactly is dissociation? Like I said earlier, dissociation is much more common than we realize, and there's a very good reason for me making a video today actually on dissociation. I've realized more with conversations that I have with people that suffer from a varying degree of different mental health complications. So many of them experience levels of dissociation. Now, when we talk about dissociation, we mean that concept of almost kind of checking out or in some way feeling psychological or emotionally disconnected. Now, there's a really stark difference between what we would call daydreaming and dissociation. Dissociation often can lead to misconceptions about our sense of self or kind of that feeling of checking out to the context around us. It can even aid in the loss of identity, and often that sense of dissociation can make us feel very, very separate to what's going on, our sense of self and to people around us. The symptoms of dissociation, and often I think I say this on GetPsyched a lot about the subjectivity of individuals and the challenge that I have, and obviously on this platform I talk very objectively, but the symptoms of dissociation can be very subjective. Things like flashbacks can occur, particularly for people that are experiencing PTSD. That can be a part of dissociation. Also, losing touch with what's going on around you, or again, feeling that level of disconnect, that can be a symptom of dissociation. Another symptom, or another kind of group of symptoms that can be quite common within dissociation are those feelings of depersonalization and derealization. Now, we recently, well I say recently, it was a couple of years ago now actually, did a video on derealization and depersonalization on GetPsyched, and you can check out the link above my head here on either side. And we're going to talk, in that video we talk a lot about derealization and depersonalization. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that right now because it is such a big topic. We did a full video on that. But derealization and depersonalization fundamentally is either that loss of sense of self or that disconnect from contexts around us. And it's a really classic symptom of dissociation. So now that we understand a very brief amount around about dissociation, what actually causes it? Because it sounds really strange, and in actual fact it sounds not very functional. It doesn't sound like it serves a purpose. Well, in order for us to understand what causes it, we need to recognize that at one point or another, dissociation did serve a positive purpose. Now, often dissociation can be a symptom of people that have experienced trauma, particularly complex trauma, and that dissociation at one point or another did a really good job of protecting that person from confronting what could be really challenging emotions. So that concept of emotionally checking out could be used as a survival technique to distance that person from the traumatic or challenging situation that once occurred. The truth is that at one point or another, dissociation was really helpful. It helped you survive. It's just not that helpful in the current moment, but we're still using those mechanisms sometimes, or people still use those mechanisms to operate. It gives people an opportunity to create much needed distance from themselves and that emotional trauma. So now that we understand a lot about what dissociation is and what causes dissociation, how do we start overcoming dissociation? Well, dissociation is often associated to our fight or flight response based on what we've been through previously. So one of the ways in which we can overcome dissociation is to learn to become more present, and we can use a variety of techniques. One of those techniques is, in order to experience some self-soothing, we can use some breathing techniques. Now, one technique in particular that brings us more into the present moment is what we call box breathing. Now, I do this with clients sometimes where either kind of in their mind's eye, or they can even draw this out, is to draw a box as they breathe. So on the downward lines on a box, they breathe in for 4 seconds. On the across lines on a box, they breathe out for 6 seconds, and they keep doing that throughout the box. Now, they can do that in their mind's eye, or they can draw that out on a piece of paper, and it's a tool to help aid that slow breathing process to bring that person back into the present moment. So often an experience of dissociation can come about from emotional triggers, or triggers that have engaged that memories of that traumatic incident or traumatic situations in the past. And actually what can happen is the dissociation then feels like it needs to kick in once more to protect that person, to create an appropriate amount of distance between them and the emotionally trying situation, because we're hardwired to do that a little bit. Sometimes we're engaged with that emotional distressing situation and we think it's very present when it's not. And so this self-soothing and breathing technique can do a really good job of helping engage you in the present moment and know that you're in this moment, not in those emotionally trying moments that you were in before, and therefore your dissociation isn't needed right now. You can use other mechanisms, you can use other coping strategies to help you maintain and to help you be more present. Another technique, or another kind of group of techniques that are really, really helpful, are grounding techniques. Now, I talk about grounding techniques quite a bit on different videos on GetPsyched, and grounding techniques fundamentally do a similar thing as those self-soothing and breathing techniques, that they bring us into the present moment. Now, my favorite grounding technique is something called the 5 senses grounding technique. This is basically where we're maybe standing or sitting in a position and we list 5 things that we can see, 4 things that we can touch, 3 things that we can hear, 2 things we can smell, and 1 thing that we can taste. Now, that seems like a little bit complex and a little strange, but all that does is it's using our senses to bring us into the present moment. So I'm listing those things I can see around me, I'm listing the things that I can touch around me, the things I can smell, taste, hear, all those kind of things, just bringing myself back into that present moment. And it does a really good job of helping distance ourselves from the dissociation almost. We're learning, we're pre-wiring ourselves to not need to rely on that dissociation anymore, and instead use other techniques to help us be more present and to manage. The next thing that can be quite useful to allow ourselves to perhaps manage our dissociation is to allow periods of time where we can utilize dissociation but safely. You need to give yourself time to give the body and the mind what it's asking for to a degree. One of the reasons I'm putting this in is because it often reminds me a little bit about clients that I see with anxiety or really excessive worry. One of the worst things that we can do is say, right, let's try and not be anxious anymore, not be worried anymore, because that's not going to work, because we all get anxious, we all get worried, and to one degree or another we all dissociate. So to try and have a goal that says no more dissociation is pretty counterintuitive and actually isn't going to be all that productive. One of the things that we often do with clients with severe worry is to allot a time during the day, maybe at nighttime, some 15 minutes or 20 minutes as your worry time. Allow that time to kind of get all that worry out. And actually that kind of technique can be really useful for people that are experiencing dissociation. To utilize dissociation, but in a safe manner. Now, you could do that when watching television, having a coffee, and just giving yourself 10-15 minutes to dissociate and almost kind of get it out your system. Another thing that can be really helpful when we're starting to learn to overcome dissociation is to engage our senses. Again, this comes back to really what dissociation is all about. It's that kind of, that depersonalization or that derealization where we're feeling very detached from what's going on around us. Utilizing certain things throughout your house or in your work environment that help bring you back can be incredibly powerful when it comes to overcoming dissociation. So for example, we can use our senses to do that. So maybe we can use some essential oils to help smell certain smells in different rooms that bring us back into the moment. We can have different tastes. So maybe even there's like a drawer at work that's got some lollipops in it or something like that to engage another sense. We may even use other techniques as well. One of those techniques that can be really useful, and this sounds a little strange, I know, but I've often done this with clients who have experienced PTSD before, when they feel that they're back into that moment of trauma and some of those responses are coming back into the present day, is to use ice cubes and close it in and hold it in your hand and feel the cold of that ice cube, or feel the water dripping down your hand and into your arm as it melts. Engaging with those senses can be incredibly powerful to re-engage us and to start overcoming dissociation. The final tip that I'm going to look at here is to start using some reflective journaling. Now, reflective journaling is one of those techniques that kind of covers all bases, and it can be really powerful for many people in different parts of their life. But when it comes to overcoming dissociation, reflective journaling can be really, really powerful because it can help us with our gratitude. It can help allow us to become more present. And you're going to understand here that a lot of these techniques that we're talking about are focused on keeping you present and engaging more with the present moment. That dissociation is so much about disconnecting with the present moment, and a lot of these techniques are about re-engaging us in the present moment. So when we're overcoming, or when we're looking to overcome dissociation, reflective journaling and thinking about maybe how our day's gone, some of the things that we're grateful for, our goals for the future, all those kind of tips can be really, really powerful to help overcome dissociation. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching this week's episode of GetPsyched. This week we've been taking a look at overcoming dissociation. We've been looking at what dissociation is all about and how we start to overcome that dissociation. If you've been enjoying today's video on GetPsyched, guys, then you're definitely going to enjoy this recent video that we did on the 6 signs of hidden anxiety. You can also check out some of our other content here too. And if you've been enjoying GetPsyched as a whole, then make sure to subscribe to our channel, and you can hit that little bell next to the subscribe button and you'll get weekly reminders every time we upload. Thanks again for watching, guys, and hopefully catch you next week.